CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.
It's our 6th year of the African Conference on African Philanthropy. Everywhere where we go, we take the opportunity to experience the place, to experience the culture, but to also showcase the country in which we are doing the conference in. But we also use the opportunity to speak to delegates, record them for our conversations on African philanthropy. So welcome to the Conversations on African Philanthropy on the Nile River, where we are shooting some of our episodes. And in the next 5 days or so, we'll be speaking to different delegates, different actors, activists, foundations, government officials, researchers, you name it all. You want to find anything to do with African philanthropy, visit our channel on YouTube and other platforms, our Conversations on African Philanthropy. Welcome to yet another episode of our Conversations on African Philanthropy with me, Moyo. This episode is very special to me, but also special to the Africa Philanthropy Conference. We are shooting this at the margins of our 6th African Philanthropy Conference held in Cairo, hosted by the Gerhard Center at the American University in Cairo. We are focusing on the theme on sustainable financing for development in the majority world. I'm joined this evening by Dr. Moses Okech, who is with the Department of Innovation and Extension Studies at the University of Makerere. Moses, welcome to the Conversations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know you were chairing a session, but I'm really thankful that you could make the time and join us for this conversation. There are a couple of areas that I wanted us to talk about. This series actually focuses on people who are active in the field of philanthropy, social investment, but overall development as a whole. As you know, philanthropy is one of the key functions is to promote wellness, but also to achieve social justice from a developmental perspective. And so I wanted to talk to you on a number of areas. But before we can even get to some of those, I might want to just start by saying, can we know a little bit about yourself? I actually found it fascinating that, you know, I had not made the connection between what you are doing for the project that we are going to discuss and where you are located in the university. And you said you are located in the Faculty of Agriculture. Maybe tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up in where you are today.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Dr. Moses Okech. I'm a lecturer in Makerere University in Uganda. I belong to the Department of Extension and Innovation Studies, which is in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences and in the School of Agricultural Sciences. That is the structure within the university. The department I belong to is multidisciplinary in nature, in that we sit between the natural sciences and the social sciences. Talk about taking innovations, to rural or smallholder farmers out there, but also in terms of converting very technical knowledge at the university in a way that is consumable by the ordinary person in Uganda. So that is where I sit within the university. So as you can imagine and even wonder, what would someone sitting in a College of Agricultural Sciences be doing with the theme of philanthropy? But again, this is where academia becomes really interesting. Professionally and in terms of my academic background, I'm a social scientist, and I call myself a pra-academic. Pra-academic in the sense that I started my career from working in the private sector. I was working on financial inclusion for the rural poor for a long time. Then I also worked in the development sector with a number of development organizations. I worked in emergencies, with refugees, before again bouncing back to academia, where my PhD grounded me so much in development. My PhD is in political economy of development, and that is the multiple identities that I come with. And for the last few years, I'd centered most of my research interest on youth, especially youth employability, from the dimension of youth volunteering, youth livelihoods. So when the opportunity came to work with the CAPC on philanthropy, I found a very fertile ground to build a bridge between the things that we do at Makerere University and also the things that I've been doing for so many years to blend the knowledge and make it more useful in a practical way.
Yeah, so now it makes sense, because essentially I can see how the philanthropy part comes in, not just from the perspective of studying voluntarism and others, but also in your PhD thesis. A lot of what you do in the political economy of development touches on issues that have to do with philanthropy, issues of social justice, sustainable development, and a lot of those things are within the purview of philanthropy. So I wanted us to talk about the project that we are working on, and the project that we currently are collaborating on is the contribution of the non-profit sector towards creating dignified and fulfilling jobs for young Africans. And we came to Makerere to seek partnership with you, and I'm happy that we, over the last probably 2 years or so now, we have been implementing this project jointly, obviously with other partners from other 16 countries as well. But for those, and I think there are very few people who may not know Makerere, but for those who probably want to know more about Makerere, maybe let's talk about the position of Makerere in higher learning. A lot of us really, growing up, knew that there were a couple of universities in Africa that held a particular position, and Makerere was one of them, and it has produced a number of academics that have gone on globally to make huge waves. I mean, one of them is Mahmoud Mamdani.
Sure.
That a lot of us have read his works. He's been a mentor to a number of people. And even, the Mamdani family has produced a potential mayor for the city of New York. So maybe let's position Makerere in the world, but also in the universe of higher learning.
Right. Thanks for that. Makerere University, as you know, is one of the oldest universities in Africa. In fact, it's now over 100 years old. And interestingly, I think Makerere University is as old as WITS.
Yeah.
The University of the Witwatersrand.
Yeah, because I think we're about 103 or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is great. Initially, it was conceived, the university was conceived as a technical university during the colonial times when the British were still in charge. And it was meant to train, technical people from across the entire East Africa. And eventually, it became what was called the University of East Africa. So that meant anyone going to school, post-secondary school to university in East Africa, whether you're in Kenya or Tanzania, had to go to Makerere. And to that extent, he has produced some luminary alumni, like the late Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o was in Makerere, the late Professor Mwai Kibaki of Kenya was in Makerere, where he did not only study but eventually taught as well, and so many other luminaries from across Africa.
My favorite is Dan Nabudere.
Yeah, Professor Dan Nabudere, and of course Professor Mamdani, who has actually, in between studying at Makerere, has come back to serve at the university in different capacities a number of times. Initially I went to the Faculty of Social Sciences by then, where Mamdani once served as the dean as well. And, you know, you meet a number of people who actually trace their origins and academic journeys from that institution. So that is really what Makerere is, just to place it in the context. As we talk right now, Makerere is bracing itself to stand out as a research-led institution. There's a continuous effort, you know, to focus more on graduate education going forward, because strategically also for the country, I think that is the direction that we are trying to take as Uganda. The government of Uganda still relies so much on Makerere University for policy shaping through research and other engagements with the country.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that. I wanted us to set the context as to why we are collaborating with Makerere University, because it's one of the finest universities in the continent, having produced a number of research products, but also, like you mentioned, a number of you know, academic luminaries trace their training back to Makerere. So this project that we are collaborating on, focusing on the employability of young Africans by the non-profit sector from the perspective of dignified and fulfilling jobs, obviously will produce different results depending on the context and the countries that are concerned. So in Uganda, you know, you are at a point where you are, you know, administering the first set of questionnaires from a quantitative perspective, because the study is a mixed methods approach, starting with the quantitative questions, and then we'll move on into the qualitative stage. So we are at the quantitative stage, and I wondered whether you want to pull out some of the emerging preliminary findings or trends, you know, that, you know, you could say, and you did speak to some of those early in the morning, but I wondered if we can have an opportunity to just pull out some of the key preliminary patterns or findings.
Yeah, so you're right to say on the CAPSIS study, so far we have done the quantitative survey, whereby we did over 1,000 surveys with youth, but also with the non-profit organizations in Uganda. We are in the process where we are now doing some preliminary analysis after data cleaning. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the emerging findings. These are just some headline issues, but there's a lot that lies beneath the data, which we are yet to extract and write more about. Looking at the youth on the margin, because one of the objectives of the study was really to trace the experiences of the youth on the margin. These are, you know, the marginalized youth in their different categories, and their perspectives towards the contribution of the non-profit sector to providing dignified and fulfilling work for them. One of our findings is that when you look at youth, both those who have gone to school and those who have not gone to school, there's a tendency for them to look at the non-profit sector as the go-to institution when looking out for skills. These skills are considered to be quite useful in the world of work to validate, you know, your capacity to perform certain tasks. So a lot of non-profit organizations have positioned themselves to attract this youth. For the educated youth, normally they're engaged either through apprenticeship trainings or through volunteering activities and internships. For the youth who have not gone far with school, these are the youth that you typically find working in the garages, repairing people's cars and so on. they're being targeted with vocational skilling training. Now, looking at especially the youth who have not gone to school and how, again, they value the skills that they get from attending such trainings, most of them actually attribute, their improved livelihood opportunities to those skills. Because self-employment is one of the mainstays of young people in Uganda, for reasons being that Uganda has got a very young population, and the existing, whether public sector, private sector, and the third sector opportunities may not absorb all of them. So most of them get into, self-employment. Some studies says Uganda is among the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. And I think most of this is attributed to self-employment, where the young people find themselves. The other interesting finding also that is coming out is that the non-profit sector are doing so many things to position themselves to be attractive to young people. Now, among the key sectors that young people are more interested in, the area of digital skilling. And those are the kind of jobs that many young people that we spoke to, find to be fulfilling. Fulfilling in the way that it allows them to do the things they love to do. It allows them to, exploit their potential to the full. In terms of it being dignified, now the dignity, according to the definition of many young people that we spoke to, has got to do with the income, therefore, that comes out of, working in certain sectors. And they look at income that is comparable to what people in the formal sector actually get. So these are some of the really headline things that are emerging out of the data, but there's a lot more than that.
Fascinating stuff, because the definitions definitely is something that I was looking forward to hearing, because when we held conversations in Kigali and in Accra, our standard definition of what dignified and fulfilling meant we had about 4 markers. One of them was this issue of secured income or predictable income. The young people were actually more they were more critical about those definitions, because they thought that most of that did not capture what fulfilling and dignified would mean for them. So, for example, there's this new phenomenon of not sticking and staying in one position. They are very mobile, and mobility comes with other contradictions. For example, mobility may not secure, or in a way, it may not ensure predictability and all of those things. And so it's really calling us to reimagine definitions and contours around what we mean by dignified and fulfilling jobs. But we are looking forward to the final study and also the qualitative elements when that comes out. But I was also keen to know, leading up to obviously doing this study, a project of this nature had so much of operational, organizational, coordination and things. One of them which had to do with, just having to do the usual stuff that if you are doing research with communities, you've got to do government approvals, ethics. And Uganda was one of the countries that kind of took a bit longer to get all the required approvals. And obviously the context matters, and maybe even the definitions that we're engaging in also matter. I wanted us to take a bit of time and do a bit of reflection on some of the, whether expected or unexpected challenges that Uganda faced in the conceptualization, the operationalization, and the coordination of the project up until the point when we started executing the questionnaires.
Looking at this project, especially when we went for securing ethical approval from the REC, it took a little bit longer than we had anticipated for a number of reasons. For starters, you know that the study looks at people on the margins.
Yeah.
Now, people on the margin fall within, those protected categories when it comes to issues of ethics. We are talking about, youth, who are formerly, convicts, talking about, issues of recidivism. So if there's some recidivists in the community, those are people who are really part of our focus, because then the consideration was that these are people who then face a lot of stigma in terms of getting employment. There were also other sensitive issues there, like the definition of the threshold for young people or for the youth that we are going to engage in the study. While the proposal looked at even people from the age of 15 onwards, we had to do some back and forth consultations with the national stakeholders, first of all, and also checking with the REC what then it would take to include such people below the adult age into our study. And we found that it would be a little bit too complex, much as we really had interest in talking to people of 15 years and above. So we had to adjust along the way our protocol to all include the African, the African Union definition, but also the Ugandan, blending with the Ugandan definition of the youth of 18 and above. So that maneuvering took a bit of time. And then of course, the REC also has got a lot of nitty-gritty requirements that you might actually take for granted. For instance, you're still required to produce a risk assessment for COVID-19, although COVID-19 is no longer an issue. But we also had emerging or a repetition of some very serious diseases in the country, things like Marburg and Ebola, especially when there were a few cases of Ebola around that time when we were seeking ethics approval. Then we had to be pushed back in terms of preparing, a risk management plan also for that. So all those took a bit of time, but eventually, we fulfilled all the conditions and we got the approval.
And you also spoke about the process of consulting the national stakeholders. I mean, a research or a project of this kind requires not just the academics and researchers to actually do the work. There's also a requirement to engage with, government offices that will be implicated by the different components of the study. But also there's the huge element of the non-profit sector. There's the whole element of young people themselves and the constituencies. Maybe talk to us about how you have managed to hold those national consultative processes.
Yeah, so the research is definitely about young people. So the first category of people we had to consult were young people themselves. So we did kind of scoping visits around the country and brought young people together and had this conversation with them in terms of just checking the major aspects of the study, where young people are likely to be found, what would guarantee their participation in the study, and maybe things they are not comfortable with, because these are all safety issues that we really had to put right. Then the other category were now the other stakeholders that work with young people, right from the government, we had the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development that work directly with young people. We had other stakeholders in government. We had the non-profit organizations working with young people, but also the private sector actors whose opinions and perspectives we thought were very useful when it comes talking about youth employability. So we brought all these stakeholders together. We had a convention, a workshop, where, again, we threw all the research questions to them, and they were able to guide, you know, in terms of how to go about with them. I think what came out more importantly from those stakeholder conversations is that we need, again, to double check with them when we are back from the field.
Yeah.
They want to see what the data, to validate the data. Because they're saying oftentimes, you know, they participate in interviews, but then sometimes you don't get to make any other input before the final report comes out. I'm happy that is the intention of this study. And after analysis and having a synthesis of the initial report, we are happy to bring them again in a stakeholder workshop to look at it. So that was quite engaging and took a bit of time, but also worth it.
Yeah, fascinating, because, you know, like the communities are saying, more often researchers go into the community, extract data, and then they go. And so there's this research fatigue now where communities feel like they're just being used and they don't benefit from the study. And so I know it's too early to ask, but in the context of Uganda, what do you think will be the benefits of this study? Firstly, to the young people themselves, and then secondly, to the communities, but also even to policymakers, because a lot of this study has implications for policymakers, for the nonprofit sector itself, for donors, for the private sector. It might be too early, but I think there are some of the things that we can project.
So your question is really on point. I would start probably with the young people themselves. Already we are beginning to anticipate some value that would come out of this study for young people. That young people have been able to, you know, confide in us in terms of what they would really want to see when it comes to work. You know, the kind of work that would motivate them, the kind of work that they would feel, you know, gives them the dignity that they deserve. So once the actors and stakeholders who work with these young people can really take in these recommendations and implement them in their programming, then we are going to see jobs that actually, you know, attend to the interest of young people. So that will be quite some benefit to them. Again, when it comes to the practitioners, the organizations that work with young people, where is the value in this research for them? Trust me, very many organizations were very open with us, you know, telling us that sometimes we are fascinated. You know, you talk about, you know, creating opportunities for young people, and it amazes them that many times young people don't stay on the job for a long time. You know, they find it fascinating. What they thought these people needed was work. They get work, but then they walk away from work. So how do they retain young people on jobs, certain jobs? I think probably some of the answers may emerge from the findings that maybe what they've been doing, probably they were not doing it the right way. So I see value in that. To the policy makers already...
But before you move to the policy makers, in presenting some of the emerging findings, one of them had to do with the fact that some of the young people actually see the nonprofit sector as almost like a one-stop place where they go to attain skills. And once they've attained those skills, they now move to what they actually call my work. So the nonprofit sector is not probably seen for them as the actual or ideal work, but this is where I need to go and hone my skills, be proven, and then I have now the track record to go to the next stage. If that is the case, then it means the nonprofit sector must understand that and realize that they have to reconsider and reconceptualize what they mean when they are providing work to young people. Because it may be that they shouldn't be thinking about keeping people and retaining them for a long period, because that's not what young people want. Young people want to gain skills and move to the next.
Absolutely. And I'll give you examples about that. There are situations where young people join an organization that gives them, digital skills, and this organization loves to retain some of them.
Yeah.
Like actually, because they've also considered the issue of training people and then you abandon them,
Yeah.
and then the training is really
Again,
rendered
yeah.
useless. So there were openings to retain some of the young people in this organization, and some of them told us they opted, to get out because they did not want to just be employed by somebody. What they wanted was to start their own businesses and become their own bosses. Those are their words. I think autonomy matters to that category of the youth. And indeed, we saw a few of them who went and set up their own things, and they're very happy about it. There are also those who just love the environment. So once the work environment no longer meets their expectation, they're happy to move on, irrespective of how much you're actually paying them. Some of this environment they were talking about, that supportive, environment where your views and opinions matter, where you sit around a table and you make a decision. I mean, you contribute to decision making. That was important to some youth. What some non-profit organizations have not understood is that youth are moving away from that stage where you decide everything for them and then you hand it over to them and they take it. I was going to talk about the policy side of things. Now, from the policy perspective, they've also been struggling with actually finding out what actually works for young people. Many times, top-driven policies have failed, with a lot of money around it, a lot of resources dedicated to youth empowerment programs. And then when final evaluations are done, you find out that it has not done much. We have a number of examples. So already the conversation I'm hearing from policymakers is that this study, they cannot wait for the outcome of this study because they want to know exactly what is it that ticks for the youth. For instance, there's a parliamentary forum that is really positioning itself, to engage more with this research. And already they have made a request that when the output is ready, we need to have a conversation because they want to take in some of these recommendations and actually implement them. So there's a very positive, posturing towards the study at all levels. And it is our belief that it may actually have some impact.
Yeah, definitely. And I was going to ask you what your plans are when the study is fully done, report is ready. What would be your plans around popularizing it, but also disseminating it to a point that it's got some policy impacts? So where I'm sitting, I already see the study having implications on certain ministries. So the Ministry of Youth, if there's one in particular, the Ministry of Women, Gender, and whatever it could be called, Ministry of Finance for budgeting and budget allocations. I think I don't know whether there's a Ministry of Planning or a Department of Planning. Sure. So I see a lot of ministries that this study might have implications for. So again, it's too early, but I know as part of the study, you always already think about how you will disseminate the information. So once the study is out, what are some of the planned activities? Those can be revised. That's not an issue.
Yeah, I've already hinted towards
the parliamentary forum.
Yeah, exactly. The parliamentary forum, and that would actually give us anchorage, especially from the policy angle, to be able to contribute to some of the debates that would come on the floor of Parliament. And if that be it, then we are more likely to see, more youth-friendly legislation, coming out to the fore. The other bit we hope to do is community engagement at different levels. Of course, via the non-profit organizations, it's possible to bring the stakeholders together, especially when they're framing, designing interventions such that they consider, or they take inputs and recommendations from the study. And that's another way of getting into that space. but we also anticipate a situation where the academic institutions, already we have been approached by one of the non-profit organizations that has a very national reach, that they would like to develop a curriculum on philanthropy and youth engagement.
Yeah.
Because they feel that that is something that is lacking out there. I mean, not many universities offer you know, academic programs in that field. So they were wondering whether this study could actually help inform, you know, the curriculum for that kind of thing. And we are seriously considering actually going in for it. So already I'm seeing all these possibilities lying ahead of us in terms of getting into the mainstream policy, in terms of expanding, you know, the menu in the academic world, but also in terms of, you know, bringing more understanding around the same subject matter.
In fact, that's a good way for me to segue to our last conversation, which is, you know, the fact that there's also this idea and even the possibilities of informing curriculum development from a philanthropic perspective. We are here attending this 5-day conference, our 6th conference on African philanthropy, focusing mainly on the theme of sustainable financing for development in the majority world. What do you hope to achieve at a personal level, but also at the level of the institution and the project?
Yeah, so from this 6th African Philanthropic Conference, first of all, I see a number of things that are really going to add value to me, but also to the project. Personally, you know, the level of networking that we have here at this conference here in Cairo is unprecedented, because we are going to have a mix of academics and practitioners coming together to have conversations about the same thing. Now that's a rare opportunity, because these people come from across the continent and probably some even from beyond. Now, these are the kind of engagements that we need in terms of, you know, extending the research output even further out there, but also in terms of testing whether some of the approaches we have used, you know, are world relevant or not. But also for the study, I think visibility is very important, because now everybody knows what we are doing, both institutionally, the institution that I represent, Makerere University, but also the collaboration with the CAPSI, the WITS Business School. People know what we are doing. And you run into practitioners who come and tell you that, you know, I was fascinated by what I had on the panel, and we're right now struggling with this aspect of our programming. And so they begin to see inroads into that collaborative space between researchers and the practice that they are doing. And I think talking about evidence-led development approaches, this is how this kind of things get shaped up.
No, fascinating. So I really think that we have an opportunity here, not just to benefit from the networking and the many diverse voices and even products. I mean, there's an exhibition that's already started, but it would go on for the next 5 days. But it's also an opportunity to also once again meet some of these 17 partners. Not all of them will be here, but you already have some that are here. And I think, you know, a research of this project of this nature, where you actually have experiences from other parts of the continent, it's really fascinating, and it's a real opportunity, because once we have got all the studies together, we now got to see again what is the picture like in Kenya, you know, in Rwanda, in Tanzania, in Ethiopia. And these are the countries that, you know, the project is focusing on in East Africa. And then we move on to Southern Africa. What is the picture in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, DRC, and South Africa? You know, we move to West Africa. What is the picture in Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Senegal? And then here, of course, in North Africa, Egypt and Morocco. And so I'm really excited and hopeful that, in the next year or so, we are able to bring all of you together to look at the composite picture that is emerging. So Moses, thank you so much for making the time. And hopefully we'll talk again once you have the final results.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
Thank you so much. That was Moses Okech, a lecturer at Makerere University in the Department of Extension and Innovation Studies. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.